It's been so long, I can't control myself. That's what Nancy whispered into my ear. Hearing her soft voice, my pulse quickened, and I felt heat spreading throughout my body. I never imagined that something like this would happen at my workplace. My name is Bob Harrison. I'm a 32-year-old bachelor and an employee. Currently, I'm working at a major electronics manufacturer. Because it's a big corporation, people admired me, but unfortunately, I've been recently demoted. Bob, give your best at your new place. You're better off working in the country than slaving away at the headquarters. That's what the director said to me with a smirk on his face. The director himself was the one who sent me off to this subsidiary, often referred to as exile. He's famous for his oppressive attitude towards employees he doesn't like, and recently, I was his main target. He criticized every single thing I did and continually put me down. For example, when I asked him about specific corrections on documents that he'd shredded without properly reading, he just told me to figure it out by myself, and making me cater to his reckless whims was truly exhausting. The director supposedly married the niece of the CEO for his career advancement. Because of this, a certain unquestioning atmosphere permeated the company. However, the director was also well known for his womanizing and had a poor reputation among those who knew him. On top of that, he treats his subordinates really bad. Despite this, I had a strong sense of company loyalty, and I took the hardship positively, thinking that overcoming this adversity would make me grow as a person. No matter what the director did, I was determined not to give in and keep working, but it seemed that my resolve only amused him more. When my demotion was decided, the director seemed extremely pleased. As I've worked at the headquarters, this unreasonable transfer was quite a shock. But I steeled myself to face this challenge. I couldn't let my mother down, who was watching over me from heaven. I will always be watching over you from heaven. I still can't forget the look on my mother's face when she told me this, lying in her hospital bed, pale as a sheet. Trying to cheer her up, and I said, "Don't say such weak things. I want to be with you forever." "No, it's okay. I'm already happy enough that you've grown up to be such a kind child." I tear up even now when I remember my mother's gentle smile. My mother passed away around the time I went off to college. My father was the worst person. When I was still a child, my mother protected me from my father, who had started raising his hand not only to her but also to me. And she raised me on her own. Despite being busy with work and housework, she always had a smile on her face and showered me with love. I could never thank her enough. If I were to complain here, my mother would be sad. "Mom, I definitely won't give up." With determination, I set off for my new post. The place I was transferred to was a peaceful countryside, and the environment was very comfortable. The folks at my new position were all kind-hearted, and I was able to enjoy my work. Of course, just because it was a less prestigious role, I didn't slack off, but instead did my absolute best. I believed that if I kept up the hard work, it wouldn't be a dream to get a promotion again. Indeed, a year after being shifted to this new position, I had made significant accomplishments in my work and began receiving recognition. This fact made me relieved. Just when I breathed a sigh of relief, I received an interesting proposition from a colleague named Todd. "Hey, Bob, how about we go to the party for singles?" "A party? Yeah, you don't seem to have a girlfriend either, so it's a chance to meet someone." As Bob pointed out, I didn't have a girlfriend at the moment. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I had no experience with dating in my life. When I was at the head office, I had many opportunities to be invited to social gatherings, but I was always busy with the manager's rigorous workload and chased by stress, so I couldn't find the mood for romance. But now, with some breathing room. It seemed like the perfect timing to seek new connections. I'm almost 33, and I'd like to get married at some point. With that in mind, I decided to participate in the party, but it didn't go as smoothly as I expected. The party was held at a luxury hotel, and many more participants gathered than I anticipated. But I couldn't communicate well with the women and ended up feeling isolated. This wouldn't happen in a business context, but casual chit-chat seemed difficult for me who had been submerged in work. In contrast to me, Todd, with his social and lively character, was making vibrant conversations with many women. Neither Todd nor I were particularly handsome, but despite this, the difference in our situations left me feeling disappointed. I thought the women at the party probably saw me as a boring guy. When I was feeling down, I suddenly heard a voice, "Excuse me, may I talk to you?" When I lifted my gaze, I was astonished. Standing in front of me was a woman of unbelievable beauty. I was so captivated by her, who looked as if she could have stepped right out of a TV show, that I couldn't even look away. Of course, I've been looking for someone to talk to since I came to the party. You were alone too, so I thought I'd come and talk. She said this with a gracious smile. I guess everyone's too intimidated to approach because you're so beautiful. Oh, you're a smooth talker. Not at all. It's just that I've never had a proper conversation with a woman other than my mother, and so, here I am in this situation. Oh, you have a good relationship with your mother. That's wonderful. Yes, she passed away when I was in high school, but she was truly a good mother. Oh, I'm sorry. When I mentioned that my mother had passed away, she looked genuinely sorry. But of course, it wasn't her fault. It was me who brought up my mother all of a sudden. But actually, I lost my mother when I was young too. Really, whether it was a blessing in disguise or not, we started to talk about our mothers. At first, I was frustrated with myself for not being able to converse smoothly, but as time passed, I found myself chatting naturally with her. She was not only beautiful but also had a very friendly personality. Before I knew it, I was not only fascinated by her appearance but also by her dazzling smile and gentle manner. Oh, what a joy it would be to have a girlfriend just like her. Just as I was thinking this, the host of the party gave instructions to the participants through a microphone. All right, everyone, we will now be ending the talking time. If you are interested in someone, please write down their badge number on the sheet we distributed at the beginning. I nodded at her and left to join Bob. Her badge had the number 28 on it. There's no way I would match with her, but I wrote down 28 and handed the sheet to the party organizer. I had a great time with such an attractive woman. That was enough for me. With those thoughts, I was looking up at the stage of the party when the hosts started to announce the results. At the end of the party, they would introduce the men and women who had successfully paired up. Now, let's start with male number 2 and female number 6. Congratulations on becoming a couple. Each time the host said this, a man and a woman ascended to the stage and were introduced. Before I knew it, the venue had transformed into a festive mood, filled with a peculiar heat. Todd, too, had successfully paired up and ascended the stage. Todd's partner was a slender, adorable woman, and the spectators were all worked up. When the spectators called for a kiss, Todd, going along with the flow, kissed the back of his partner's hand like a prince, eliciting laughter from the audience. Before I knew it, I was carried away by the atmosphere, watching the proceedings and laughing. However, upon hearing the host's announcement, my mind went blank. Now, next we have male number 19 and female number 28. Please come up to the stage. I looked at my own badge, and indeed number was 19. Hey, Bob, you're being called. Urged by Todd, I finally headed towards the stage. There, The woman from before was already waiting for me. I never dreamed that she and I would be paired. What a beauty she is. The lucky number 19 man must be over the moon. When the host said this, the audience chimed in with comments like, "Hey, handsome." It was one thing to be an observer, but being the center of attention was unbearably embarrassing. It seemed like she felt the same, her face turning a deep red. But then, the audience made a further demand of us. Just like they had with Todd earlier, they called for a kiss. I was petrified and didn't know how to respond, but I couldn't just stand there on stage forever. As I was struggling, the woman next to me gave a quick peck on my cheek. In that moment, my mind went blank again as I was surrounded by cheering. I never imagined I would kiss a woman in such a way. Finally, we were allowed to step down from the stage, and she and I looked at each other. I never imagined that I'd be paired with you in my wildest dreams. Me neither, but let's drop the formalities now that we're a couple. Okay, can I ask your name? I'm Nancy Miller. Nice to meet you. Saying so, Nancy extended her hand like a lily. I touched it, feeling my heart pounding. I'm Bob Harrison. Nice to meet you. After ending the party like that, Nancy and I decided to chat for a bit in the hotel lounge. We still knew little about each other. Wow, what a night. Who knew a matchmaking party would get everyone so fired up? I was surprised too. And while it was only for about an hour, Nancy and I talked more about each other. Nancy was 30, and she was in another country until last year, but she preferred being in Japan. When I told her where I work, Nancy looked surprised. "Oh, you work at that electronics manufacturer?" "Yeah, why? Something wrong?" "No, it's just a big company." I felt a little strange about Nancy's reaction, but we exchanged contact details and parted ways. We agreed to go out for a meal another time. We were both working adults, so coordinating our schedules would be a bit of a hassle, but little did I know, an unexpected development was waiting for me. A week after meeting Nancy, a new manager was assigned to our division and was introduced during the morning meeting. I was nervous about meeting the new boss, but when I saw who it was, I was at a loss for words. The one who was there was me, in a relationship with a woman named Nancy Miller. It's Ms. Nancy Miller, who has been promoted to the position of section chief. Until last year, she was abroad gaining experience, they announced. "I'm Nancy Miller. Nice to meet all of you," she exclaimed. In stark contrast to my shock, Nancy maintained her poker face as she greeted everyone. However, I did not miss her gaze towards me and the silent later message she sent through eye contact. Then, Nancy and I gathered in the break room. "Why are you here?" I asked. "I'm sorry, I really wanted to tell you, but I had to keep it a secret due to confidentiality," she replied with an apologetic expression. As for me, I had no intention of blaming her. I was just taken aback by this surprising coincidence. However, Nancy cast a worried look my way. "Do you mind having your girlfriend as your boss?" she asked. "No, not at all. I like you, Nancy," I stuttered. Upon hearing this, her face lit up with happiness. "Me too. I really like you, Bob. I get so nervous and blush whenever I'm around you," she admitted. Indeed, her face was crimson red. "It's been a long time since I felt this way. My body isn't listening to me," she confessed, whispering in my ear. Her whisper sent my heart racing, and my body grew hot. I could not have imagined that such a turn of events would happen in the office. But honestly, I didn't mind that Nancy was my boss. She was a very talented individual. Upon our reunion at the office, we confirmed our feelings for each other and officially started dating. We didn't make our relationship public, but I was able to work happily with her. I felt like I might have a special connection with Nancy. Such happy days passed, but a new incident occurred 1 month after we started dating. Surprisingly, the director who had transferred me came to see me on the name of a routine inspection. Looking at the director with a meaningful expression, I had a bad feeling. "Long time no see, Bob," he said. "Hello," I responded. "I'm sure you're finding this new place quite comfortable. I came today to make sure you can continue working here," he added. "Pardon," as I widened my eyes in surprise, the director laughingly continued. "Well, there are talks of bringing you back to headquarters, but you prefer it here, don't you? So, I came to ask the director to let you stay." In other words, the director was there to prevent my return to headquarters. I trembled at the director's deviousness. "Director, you..." No, quite the opposite. If anything, you should be grateful. That's something I'll discuss with my father." Suddenly, Nancy appeared. On seeing her, the director's face turned pale. Nancy, why are you here? Didn't you know? I'm here to learn. On my father's orders," she responded. What do you mean by Nancy's father? Bob, what are you saying? Nancy is the president's daughter. Be respectful." At that moment, everything clicked into place in my mind. The president's last name was Miller, too. And no matter how much the director was a relative of the president, he would never dare to disrespect Nancy, the president's daughter. "There are also other unpleasant rumors about you. I plan to report everything to my father. Just you wait." "No way." With that, the director collapsed on the spot. It seemed that the fact that Nancy was the president's daughter was only known to a few executives. Afterwards, thanks to Nancy reporting everything to the president, the director's reputation took a nosedive and he ultimately left the company. Apparently, his wife also took this opportunity to investigate the director's personal life, confronting him with numerous proofs of infidelity. Having betrayed his wife as well, the director apparently had no choice but to leave the company. The director is now said to be living alone, chased by child support payments for his children. What goes around comes around. I was surprised to find out that Nancy was the president's daughter, but of course, my feelings for her haven't changed. "Do you mind that I'm the president's daughter? Are you sure I'm good enough?" When I asked her that, she gave me a kiss on my cheek. So, a year after we met, we both received recognition for our achievements and were assigned to work at the headquarters, continuing our relationship while working. And another year later, when things had settled down, we got married. I was worried whether the president would accept me, but he readily gave his approval. About this matter, Nancy said this: "I think my father saw a lot of himself in you, Bob." "What do you mean?" "Like you, my father has been working hard to grow the company despite the loss of my beloved mother. You remind him of himself, and I fell in love with that side of you." Nancy, even when times are tough, as long as you don't give up and keep looking forward, heaven never helps the men who will not act. I looked up at the sky and once again said thank you to my mother for bringing such a good match into my life. My name is Scott McKenna, 36 years old. I work as a systems engineer. Due to certain circumstances, I changed jobs when I was 26. That being said, my profession hasn't changed. I'm still a systems engineer. I just escaped from the US, that's all. After graduating from college, I got a job at the IT company, which was my first choice. I think it was a promising start to my career. I was motivated about my work, my colleagues and superiors were kind, and it was a workplace with good communication. Yet, I quit the company without even waiting 3 years. To put it simply, the reason was a woman. Her name was Lucy Matthews, who was assigned to the same department as me when I joined as a newbie. She was, how can I put it, a woman with a unique atmosphere and beautiful. In a world where cuteness is mainstream, I think she belonged to the category of beauty. As we worked together as system engineers, we got closer and started dating. I remember being surprised and overjoyed when Lucy confessed her feelings to me. I'm a rather plain man and a nerd who can't engage in stylish conversation. On top of that, Lucy was a Madonna-like figure in the company, the center of attention. She was out of my league. I couldn't believe that this flower on a high peak would come to me. Even now, when I think back on it, it feels like a miracle. Lucy was a flashy kind of beauty. Of course, she was well aware of her own beauty. She knew very well how to present herself. Embarrassingly enough, I think I was so afraid of her disliking me that I ended up being at her beck and call and spent my days on edge. She quickly grew tired of me. I still remember her last words. "You might be capable at work, but you're a failure as a man. Being with you, Scott, was just boring." I couldn't hide my shock at the sudden breakup and contemptuous words. It's not often that one gets scolded directly like this, especially by a woman I love. This was harsh for me. Moreover, Lucy, who had dumped me harshly, was working at the desk every day, right next to me. I couldn't take it anymore. Please don't laugh at me for running away. I was so weak-minded. So, I left the company that I had been longing for. Since then, I haven't been in touch with Lucy. On the day I resigned, she had taken a paid vacation. It's been 10 years since I quit my job. I now stand in front of the building of the company I once adored. I feel as if I'm reviving the feelings I had as a first-year employee. The truth is, I didn't just leave the company in a hurry. I also fled from the US. It's a small industry. I thought it would be hard to face my former colleagues if I got a job. So, I decided to go to where nobody knows me. Foreign IT companies are truly meritocratic. I daringly left the US to test my skills. This decision was a great success. Despite my struggle with social skills, I was fortunate to find a company that highly valued my skills as a system engineer. Witnessing cutting-edge technology, I immersed myself in my work. A decade flew by in a blink. I returned to this company because an old colleague contacted me and asked me back. It was a rather forceful invitation, so I made a request. Initially, I wanted to be employed as a regular staff member. That was my request. By doing this first, I'm confident that this experience will be useful when I return to my original work. Thus, I became a new employee at the age of 36. The department I was assigned to was the same as before. But the atmosphere was not like before. Somehow, the employees seemed to be shrinking. Before, there should have been more freedom and active exchange of opinions. I wonder what the cause is. Coming back like this, you've got some thick skin. While surveying the floor from the entrance, I was spoken to from behind. A voice I couldn't forget. It's not like I came back because I wanted to. Lucy, listening to my reply, snorted discontentedly. She had the same floral perfume scent as before. "Well, since you're a returnee, no matter who your former colleague is, no matter how old you are, you're a rookie here. You're at the very bottom. Don't forget that." Lucy, who said this arrogantly, had become a section manager. With Lucy in charge of this team, I became her subordinate. Lucy, confidently walking ahead with the clacking of her heels, was as confident as ever. What bothered me, however, was the attitude of my colleagues who were her subordinates. They seemed to be holding back around her. I carefully surveyed my surroundings and followed behind Lucy. Lucy introduced me as a returning rookie. Despite running away from this company, I came back. She introduced me as if mocking me. "I'm Scott McKenna, nice to meet you." When I greeted, sparse applause broke out. When I was shown to my desk, I was surprised to see the one next to it. On the desk next to mine, there were 3 monitors, and in front of them, a small figure of a horse was displayed. Next to it was an eye massager and a shoulder-pounding stick. I could feel the strong presence. What? Is there something wrong with my desk? The one peering at me from below as she said this was a short, skinny girl. The inside of her wolf-cut hair was bleached white. The eyeliner around her eyes was flared like a cat's. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emma Smith. Call me Emma." She stretched out her small right hand full of rings, and I shook it back. Her hand was as small as an elementary school student's. As soon as Emma took her seat, she put on white headphones. After that, she began to work at an astonishing speed. Thinking that she might only be assigned simple tasks, I stealthily glanced at Emma's screen. I let out a surprised voice involuntarily. What Emma was getting done at an incredible speed was not simple work. She's like solving intricate puzzles and codes with incredible speed. No doubt, the ace of this department is Emma. I'm certain of it. "What's up? Interested in me?" Emma, who I thought was only looking at her monitor, says this without changing her gaze. Get caught in the act of sneaking glances, I feel a bit guilty. "You can look at me more openly if you want." She turns her face towards me and smiles. As she tells me this with an upward glance and a smile, I can only respond with a huh and scratch my head. By all means, feel free to compliment me. Being told this so refreshingly feels, well, refreshing. The atmosphere in the office has changed, but everyone's skills haven't diminished. That gives me a sense of relief. That said, it seems that our boss Lucy might be responsible for this change in atmosphere. On my first day, as a system engineer, the task given to me was stapling documents. The only time I touched a computer was to check company emails. Lucy intentionally kept me away from computers. In other words, she only assigned me to do miscellaneous tasks. Newbies make the coffee in this office. Since you, Scott, are the most recent and lowest in rank, please take care of the chores. Oh, and also please make a lunch reservation for us. Saying that, Lucy left a stack of cards from restaurants at my desk. Seeing this, Emma gives a wry smile. She always does this to new people. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me, okay? I've been through it too. Being encouraged by Emma, I can't help but smile wryly too. Being encouraged by a girl almost 10 years younger makes me feel like I've regressed to my pitiful past. Thanks, that helps. As I bow my head in thanks, she looks at me as if she's discovered a rare creature. What? Is there something wrong? I quickly check myself, wondering if I've spilled coffee on my shirt or something. I find nothing wrong. No, it's not that. It's rare to hear a grown man say he's grateful to a young girl. That is new for me. She quickly puts her headphones back on and gets back to work. I touch my cheek, worried that I might have appeared pathetic. A week has passed, and I still haven't been given any proper work. Lucy begins to pile up chores from other departments on my desk. It seems like the tasks within our department weren't enough. Good morning, Mr. McKenna. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, Emma arrives at work just in time. She dumps her backpack on her desk and heads straight to the kitchen to make coffee. At that moment, I spot something under my desk. I pick it up and am taken aback. It's a flamboyantly pink and blue bikini top. I hurriedly look around. Luckily, it seems like no one has noticed. The mouth of Emma's backpack on her desk is carelessly left half open. It probably fell out of there. Even though I picked it up, I'm unsure of what to do next and start to act suspiciously. It would be best to sneak it back into the bag, but it would get complicated if Emma came back midway. Do you imagine things? As I'm wondering what to do, Emma's voice, tinged with a sigh, reaches my ears. Without thinking, I bolted up from my chair. Looking up at me with a teasing gaze was Emma. Her gaze made my heart flutter. I felt like I saw a feminine side to Emma, who usually doesn't show such traits. This was on the floor. In my flistered excuse, Emma brought her lips close to my ear once again. Reality is 100 times cuter than imagination. Finally, she let out a soft breath against my ear, and I slid off the chair. There was a sultry musk scent that was too strong for the morning. It was the scent of Emma's perfume. When sitting next to her, it's a cute and gentle scent, but at close range, it turns to a sexy scent. That change in the gap made my heart pound violently. Being teased by a girl 10 years younger, I felt my seniority melting away. I'm going to a night pool with friends today. Thanks for picking this up for me. Emma extended her hand towards me, lost in thought. First, I handed her swimsuit back, then took her hand to get up. Isn't it dangerous for a young girl to go to a night pool dressed like that? It's not a good idea. Without thinking, I sounded like a worried father. Emma gave me a confused look before bursting into laughter. She said she had never even heard such a thing from her own parents and kept laughing. Embarrassed, I muttered, "Give me a break." "Okay, if you're worried, Mr. McKenna, I won't go. But in return, I expect a reward. I'll be looking forward to it." She pushed the swimsuit into the pocket of my suit, and Emma laughed. Now I can't go to the night pool. I was captivated by Emma, who was smiling mischievously like a naughty child. It was a shocking realization of what a truly charming little devil she was. After this day, Emma and I became considerably closer. Somehow, I felt like I was being rolled around in the palm of her hand. When Emma showed up for the dinner I invited her to instead of the night pool, I was breathless. She had a completely different atmosphere than at work. Her loosely tied-up hair had perfectly fallen strands, giving her a melancholy and sexy look. A black mini dress with Dr. Martens boots. Her lips, painted a cherry blossom color, gave off an innocent vibe, contrary to her attire. I was confused about who the real Emma was. I'm lucky to be invited to such a fancy restaurant. In a small voice matching the ambience of the restaurant, Emma murmured, "I have no idea what to order." She laughed helplessly, and I found myself chuckling too. "Do you have any food allergies or dislikes?" When I asked, she answered like an honors student, "No, I don't." She seemed a bit overwhelmed by the ambience of the restaurant and appeared nervous. It made me realize that at 26, she could still have endearing, innocent moments. When I finished ordering, Emma was unusually looking at me with eyes full of admiration. "What is it?" "McKenna, you can speak French. That's impressive." I seemed to surprise her when I spoke a bit of French with the chef. As we dined, I told Emma about my experiences working in various places abroad. Emma quickly fired off a barrage of questions, causing us both to repeatedly pause our meal. I was happy she was so interested, so I shared things I'd never told anyone before. At every new revelation, Emma either laughed and clapped her hands or seemed taken aback. "Feels like I'm doing all the talking. Let me hear about you, Ms. Smith." I had just made that remark when she told me to call her Emma. "If you don't call me that, I won't respond," she said, peering into my eyes. Swallowing nervously, I cautiously called her Emma. "Yes, Scott." With a smile and a tilt of her head, she responded, almost knocking me off my feet. "I don't know what to do. I can't win against this girl." That was the lesson I learned that night. "Looks like you're smitten with a young girl, isn't it?" One day, Lucy, whom I crossed paths with in the hallway, stopped and said out loud for everyone to hear. Hearing Lucy's voice, the surrounding employees started whispering and glancing my way. "Weren't you infatuated with me before? Changed your tastes now, have you, into younger women?" Lucy's teasing tone slightly ticked me off. I was surprised, too. "I thought you'd be long married and retired by now. That's why I returned to this company. I didn't expect you to be still on the market." At my words, Lucy's face turned bright red. The whispers around us grew louder. Lucy had already started spreading stories of my past among my colleagues. I had once come across her animatedly sharing stories of how I used to be head over heels for her. While it's true that I was infatuated with Lucy, I'm not ashamed of it. However, her exaggerations and smug way of narrating irked me. Being able to pay her back a bit felt somewhat refreshing. "What? Still on the market? That's rude. It's just that I haven't met a man who's worthy of me. Stop making fun of me." Lucy raised her voice in protest. Apparently, she is in a close relationship at the moment. She rambled on about her partner, a high flyer in the industry, being more wonderful than any men in our company, although no one had asked. It seemed like she didn't want people to think she was single. It's typical Lucy, who's always had a boyfriend without a break. There's no doubt she has someone now. But when it comes to marriage, men look at different aspects of a woman. Whether living together would be enjoyable or tiresome. In other words, while Lucy is popular but not married, she's great as a girlfriend, but not suitable for marriage. The current situation demonstrates that clearly. Well, that's the thing. Don't compare me with someone who can only handle young girls. Leaving behind such a dismissive remark, the visibly annoyed Lucy stormed off. I watched as she took out her anger on her subordinates while she left. Lucy's boyfriend. Yay, I know him. He's from the development department of our rival company. He's really cheesy and, well, creepy. During lunch break, Emma and I were nibbling on some sweet bread at our adjacent desks. When I asked about Lucy's boyfriend, Emma gave a rather disgusted look as she filled me in about the man. The fact that she herself had been hit on by him seemed to disgust her to her core, which I found amusing and couldn't help but chuckle. It's not funny. I think that guy is a schemer. He even tried to talk me into transferring and suggested I bring some information as a gift. The conversation quickly took a grim turn. What do you mean by that? I stopped nibbling on the pastry. Exactly what it sounds like. That man is trying every trick in the book to steal our development information. Emma crumpled up her bread back, and with a dangerous smile, she delivered her words. Given the circumstances, it appeared that Lucy was his current target. From what I gathered today, Lucy seemed quite smitten with him. I could only hope that my bad feeling wouldn't turn out to be true. I know who you really are, Scott. Nonchalantly revealing my secret as she looked at her computer monitor. What, you're joking, right? The words slipped out of my mouth, to which Emma gave a wicked grin. On her computer screen was my confidential transfer order, which hadn't been disclosed publicly. She seemed to have effortlessly bypassed the HR computer security and discovered the truth. She confessed she had been suspicious from the start. She seemed to have noticed me reading the program source code that was displayed on her computer monitor. Nobody in this department can read code like you can. I knew right away you were not just an ordinary Joe. I was left scratching my head, my cover blown. Now, shall we swiftly drain the pus and make this workplace more pleasant? Emma said in a mockingly polite tone, her face plastered with the mischievous grin she often wore. Roger that, I conceded, throwing up my hands in surrender. I decided to dive straight into the harsh treatment. I was able to catch the tail of the information leak quite easily. Lucy had always been careless. There were traces of her habits even in the program source code. She had copied the program of a recently developed system. And there were traces of her attempting to take it outside the company. More precisely, traces of her attempt to erase evidence of her actions were clearly left behind. Others might have overlooked it, but not me. Instead of making a public spectacle, we agreed to handle this matter discreetly and consult with higher-ups. There was also a slight degree of past compassion involved. Information leak. In our department, there's no way. That was Lucy's reaction when called by the boss and informed about the leak. Furthermore, she reportedly suggested that Emma might be the culprit if there was a leak. Her basis was that Emma disrespects me, her section manager. A clear personal grudge. This conversation took place the day I met with my boss. Unusually, Lucy, who usually leaves work on time, was staying late. Both Emma and I often work overtime. Emma prefers to wrap up her work at a good stopping point before heading home, while I typically get caught up in miscellaneous tasks. I occasionally glanced over at Lucy, who was unusually glued to her computer. I suspected she was staying behind with some ulterior motive. Are you guys not leaving yet? You're wasting electricity. Lucy yells at us from afar. Her voice carries a sharp edge of impatience. I can feel Lucy's anxiety as if I could touch it. She must be trying to cover up all her wrongdoings. But all the access codes have been rewritten by my coworker, Emma. Someone else might have been able to crack it, but breaking through a system that Emma has constructed is impossible for Lucy. Even from our seats, we can hear Lucy's sking. The next moment, a loud alarm blares from Lucy's computer, signaling an emergency. She's fallen into the trap I've set. Upon hearing the noise, the security guard rushes into the floor. Employees who had been working overtime in other departments also gather around. I didn't do anything, it just started going off by itself. It's a bug, a bug. Who the hell programmed this? Lucy stands up, pointing at her computer. The alarm continues. Then, Emma steps smoothly to the computer and silences the alarm in an instant. As soon as the noise stops, Lucy's face relaxes. And in the next moment, she points at Emma and starts yelling. This is your doing. You're the one who leaked the information too, aren't you? You set up this trap because you didn't want me investigating you. Lucy doesn't get to finish her sentence. Because the boss showed himself among the gawkers. Lucy, this isn't a good look. You are the main culprit behind the data leak, aren't you? Falling into this trap is proof of that. The boss explains to Lucy that all the evidence was gathered in my internal investigation. Lucy, shocked, looks at me. You're lying. Scott doesn't have these skills. What could a good-for-nothing errand boy do? Lucy glares at me, then rounds on the boss. The boss sighs in exasperation. Scott, I'm glad we followed your plan. I never expected to catch such a big fish. Lucy looks at me, dumbfounded, as the boss speaks to me amicably. She clearly hadn't expected that I was working with the boss. Scott is a talent we invited to our company as a supervisor. He's my right-hand man, whom I brought in from England. At the boss's words, Lucy is stunned into silence. We'll notify you of your punishment later. For now, go home and refrain from work until we get in touch. Upon hearing the boss's words, Lucy collapses on the spot. Later, Lucy gets transferred to a small branch office in Nebraska. I end up taking over Lucy's position. Emma complained about her desk being moved away from mine, but there's nothing that could be done about that. Although the ending left a sour taste in our mouths, the atmosphere at work changed completely. I think it's getting closer to how it was when I was around. A workplace with a good flow of communication, where lively and candid exchanges of opinion are possible, and performance quickly starts to improve. Everyone on the floor acknowledges that Emma is contributing to this change. I think we can continue to work together like this forever. That's what I was leisurely thinking. But Emma isn't someone who would settle here. A year later, she receives an offer to study abroad in Japan. Bring home the latest technology and information. That is her mission. The company is covering all the expenses for her study abroad. She had absolutely no reason to refuse. When this conversation came up, I was shaken. We never openly acknowledged it, but we consider each other as lovers. I lack the capacity to cheerfully wave goodbye as my irreplaceable partner sets off across the sea. How can I make her stay? That's all I could think about. Even when I'm with Emma, all I can do is contemplate how to make her stay in the US, making it impossible to enjoy our time. Should I propose marriage as a last resort? I'm disgusted by myself for even considering such a low method. Emma laughs as if she sees right through my thoughts. Hey, are you going to be lonely if I go to study abroad? Emma, who has always been one step ahead of me, stops and turns to look at me. Of course I'll be lonely, that's a given. Emma chuckles happily upon hearing my reply. I thought this was the only moment to mention marriage. Just when I gathered my courage and tried to voice it, Emma's slender finger touched my lips. No, not now. When I come back from Japan, then you can move on me. I'll say yes right away. Emma looks at me with unusually serious eyes. After she finishes her sentence, she gives me a soft smile. I raise both my hands in a surrendering pose. I've never won against Emma anyway. I get it, I promise. And so, I sent Emma off. 4 years later, I'm waiting for Emma at JFK Airport. It's not like me, but I've prepared a bouquet of flowers. I've had my opening line decided since 4 years ago. Welcome back, will you marry me? My heart feels like it's about to leap out of my mouth. The electronic display announces the arrival of Emma's flight. It's only a little longer. In a little while, a new chapter of our story will begin. Of course, the ending is planned to be a happy one. How did you find today's story? Your subscription and likes will be an encouragement for my content creation. I look forward to your comments. See you in the next video. She lost her husband and now she's a single mom and a doctor. She's also my boss, and she always seems so exhausted. Without thinking, I find myself wanting to offer her some help. My name's Joe Browning. I'm just an ordinary single guy, working as a nurse. Well, I've thought about settling down and getting married someday, but right now, I've got my niece who I've been raising like a daughter, so I'm not lonely. You see, my home situation is a bit unusual. My sister, Rebecca, became a mother when she was only 20 years old. She was married, but the guy was still a student. For whatever reason, they divorced before she gave birth and she returned home. Raising a child is hard work. Honestly, she couldn't manage without help from everyone around her. I was considering moving out at the time, but I couldn't abandon my pregnant sister and aging parents, so I stayed. After a lot of struggle, my niece was born, but that was just the beginning. My niece, Clara, is a real crybaby, and it's all hands on deck for the family. Especially we have TP feed newborns every 3 hours. There were days I took over to give Rebecca some rest. Some may think that's a mom's job, but Rebecca was young and struggling to adjust to her new environment. But she's trying her best for her daughter. It's not like I'm going to get struck by lightning for helping out every now and then, right? As a nurse, I'm good at taking care of people, and I have the stamina for it. So, I was there to step up when Rebecca was worn out. Because of all this, I really adore Clara and treat her as if she were my own child. Claire is now 5 years old. She's becoming more independent and cheeky, but she's grown into a sweet little girl. Now that she's not a newborn, there's less for me to do, so I look for opportunities to do things for her, like taking her to her weekend activities. Doing something for my cute niece like dropping her off and picking her up is no big deal. So, having been involved in raising a child to some extent, I'm interested in marriage, but not seriously considering it because of Clara. Honestly, raising a child isn't as sweet as just feelings of cute and love. If I meet someone I'd like to raise a child with for the rest of my life, then maybe I'll consider getting married. That's the sort of situation it is. All right, enough. Listen to me. No way. As I was considering marriage alone, I was on a walk on my day off when I heard a child crying loudly nearby. The sound of a child crying. The temper tantrum. Small children have limited vocabulary. It's not unusual for them to have an emotional outburst when they can't express their feelings well. I thought to myself, this is tough, and looked towards the direction of the sound. There was a boy, about 5 years old, and a woman. Wait a minute. Alice, Joe, what are you doing here? Seeing the woman who seemed to be the mother of the tantrum-throwing boy, I was surprised, and she looked just as astonished. Her name is Alice Hartford. She's a doctor and my superior. She's dedicated to her work, kind to everyone, but strict with herself. She's a very competent doctor, well liked by both staff and patients, or at least she was. No, she's still competent, and I still respect her. But last year, she lost her husband in an accident. Now, she's a single mom raising her son alone, which makes working late or night shifts difficult. She's still working hard while using daycare, but if her son gets sick, she has to leave work, which affects her job performance. As someone who has experienced raising a child, I admire Alice, and I understand that kids get sick all the time, but in a workplace full of single people, criticism from colleagues has been increasing recently. I'm sorry for the noise, just stop crying. While Alice is scolding the boy's crying only gets worse. This situation is not ideal. I'm sorry, Miss Hartford. What caused your son to start crying? He was going up the slide backwards a little while ago. When I told him it was dangerous and to stop, this is what happened. I see, I think to myself. Perhaps the boy wanted to play by climbing up the hill. When his mother stopped him due to the danger, he probably threw a tantrum because he didn't understand why it was dangerous in the first place. The boy's name is Mason, so I squat down near Mason and say, Mason, you wanted to climb the slide, didn't you? Climbing slide. But you see, if you do that, other kids can't slide down. Why did you want to climb it? Because I want to go high up. I asked Mason about his intentions, word by word. Turns out, he just wants to climb up high, but he doesn't want to use stairs. After hearing this, I suggest the jungle gym to Mason. It's higher than the slide and tough to climb. Mason, you might not be able to make it, I said to him. Then, Mason suddenly stops crying and exclaims, I'll climb it. And he starts climbing all by himself. That's amazing. Until now, he wouldn't listen to anything I said. Maybe he sensed your anxiety, Ms. Hartford. What? Maybe Mason wanted to climb up high and get praised. When you praise him, you smile. Maybe he wanted to see you smile in his own way. While saying this, I look at Mason. I've had similar experience a few times. Children pick up on their parents' anxiety and impatience. When children feel their parents are tired, they try to cheer them up in their own way. Well, in my case, I let Clara rest before she could throw a tantrum, so this was quite unusual. Sure enough, Mason climbs to the top of the jungle gym, and when Mrs. Johnson praises him, he smiles as if nothing happened. Having cheered up, he starts playing on the swing, and we sit down on a bench. Miss Hartford's face is quite stern. I feel like I should listen to her. "I'm sorry, Mr. Browning. I'm just causing trouble." "You're not causing any trouble at all. More importantly, you don't seem to be okay. You seem quite tired. Have you been able to rest?" As gently as I can, I ask her this question, and she begins to confess her true feelings, her voice trembling. "Ever since my husband passed away, Mason has stopped listening to me, so I think he prefers his father to me. When I see him crying, I can't help but feel like I'm a failure as a mother." While saying this, she tries hard to hold back her tears. She's been pushing herself hard, and she talks to me about what happened after her husband's death. Mason has become quite rebellious, possibly due to stress from his father's death, and he's even causing trouble at daycare, such as taking other children's toys and getting into fights, which has become unmanageable even for the teachers. A daycare teacher suggested counseling, and Ms. Hartford tried it, but it seemed to pressure her even more. The counselor told me to get closer to my child, that I was lacking in love. It felt like they were saying that I, his mother, was inadequate in my love for him, and that's why things were going wrong. It felt like everything I'd done up until now was being denied. Honestly, it's been a shock. She cut her work hours to spend more time with Mason, and that's why they were out here at the park. But he wasn't listening to her even outside, and because the park was near a road and there were other children, they couldn't let him run freely to prevent accidents and conflicts. In short, neither Mason nor Miss Hartford were able to relieve their stress, leading to a vicious cycle. At least, I want to let Mason play freely. I can't help but feel that a man is needed in situations like this. While watching Mason play on the jungle gym again after the swing, Shin speaks with a pained expression. Her parents are elderly, and she probably couldn't rely on anyone until now. Seeing her like this, I blurt out, "What about trying a sports club?" Before I realize what I've said, she turns to me. "Huh? Oh, no. I was just wondering. How about enrolling him in the sports club that my niece goes to?" In fact, my niece, Clara, had a time when she couldn't get into daycare. Of course, daycare isn't everything, but there are many things that can be learned there. Wanting to get her accustomed to group activities at least, my sister had enrolled her in a sports club. There, Clara could move her body and play as much as she wanted, so she's still attending. For parents, they can watch their children be active, and once they are around elementary school age, parents only need to drop them off and pick them up. Parents should be able to secure some time for themselves. I've been accompanying Clara to the sports club, and it's a really nice place with good kids attending. I think they're conducting a free trial next week. Whether you want to join or not, I thought it might be a good experience for your son. I've never considered activities like these. She seemed surprised but thought things wouldn't change much. She agreed to come to the trial class with me next week, so I informed Clara about it. The trial includes playing with the regular children on the jungle gym, mats, and such. New kids start by learning simple games and warm-up exercises. If I suddenly bring a stranger, Clara might be surprised. But when I explained the situation, she seemed happy about having more friends, which put me at ease. Then came the day of the trial class. Ms. Hartford and Manson appeared in tracksuits, which were recommended for easy movement. Honestly, Ms. Hartford was very nervous at first, but Manson, who doesn't seem to be shy, quickly made friends with Clara and the others. He played with them, racing and playing ball without causing any issues. Clara, being the same age but already a member, acted like a big sister, lending him her ball and teaching him how to put on his shoes. Seeing Clara grow like this made me happy. "Mom, look, I threw the ball all the way over there." Manson, who had completely fit in, was proudly reporting his achievement in ball throwing to Miss Hartford. Seeing his performance, Miss Hartford was overjoyed. "That's amazing." As she watched him play with the other children, she became teary-eyed. "I haven't seen him so happy in a long time. It's a joy." At the workplace, I had never seen Miss Hartford, a gentle mother, look so lovingly at her son. Her figure was so beautiful that I got lost in admiration. But then, ouch! "Hey, mister, don't get distracted." Clara noticed my wandering gaze and threw a softball at me. It's scary to anger a woman, and I can't afford to upset my little princess. With Ms. Hartford, who was having a ball-throwing fun with Manson in the corner of my eye, I enjoyed a spirited game of catch with Clara. After the sports club trial class, they seemed much brighter. Manson liked the sports club and immediately said he wanted to go again next week. Ms. Hartford was also pleased that Manson had something he wanted to do and decided to join. Since the club meets every Saturday, I ended up seeing Ms. Hartford there every week. I see her at work too, but it's a completely different atmosphere in her casual clothes. Honestly, my heart races. I can't help it, can I? She is a beautiful woman. But joining might have been the right decision. With plenty of play at the club, Manson now sleeps soundly at night, has calmed down outdoors, and has stopped causing problems at daycare. Furthermore, Ms. Hartford has become more considerate, not just taking care of her son, but thinking about what he wants to convey. She's regained her cheerful color and is back to her gentle self. While there's still some criticism at work, trust from the patients has been gradually recovering, and people are stopping complaining. I owe you, Mr. Browning. I was really under pressure. I thought I had to do everything by myself, but that was just adding more stress to Manson. Now, I can breathe easier. Thank you so much." Ms. Hartford, who was playing with her son in her tracksuit today, came to thank me during the break. I replied with a smile, "I'm glad you've got some breathing room. Let me know if you need anything. I'm pretty flexible." Lately, as Clara and Manson play together, I also get to play with him a lot. Thanks to that, I've become quite close to him. Then I've been invited for dinner from Miss Hartford. In appreciation for introducing them to the sports club, they said. And Manson wants to eat together, so I've been invited to their house. This is a surprising development, and I'm very excited. Of course, there's nothing indecent, but it's the house of such a beautiful woman. Of course, I'm happy, right? Well, this dinner ended up being mostly about playing with Manson. After this, I got invited frequently to family outings with them. Sometimes, I get invited by Miss Hartford, and even occasionally receive requests specifically from Manson. Once, when we went to the dinosaur museum together, people around us mistook me for his dad. It was a little awkward, but Manson happily declared, "He's my other dad. I have two dads." That made me truly happy. So, when he turned 6, I discussed with Miss Hartford, no Alice, and I asked him this. "Bob, if you're okay with it, I live in your house too. You don't have to call me Dad. You can keep calling me Uncle. I just want to be part of your family." Can you guess what Manson said after hearing me say this so seriously? "Uncle, you're already a dad," he replied, with an utterly bewildered look on his face. Both Alice and I couldn't help but laugh at that. We realized that the only ones who were being formal about it were us adults. Manson said he wished you'd become his dad. So, let's do this together, okay? Alice said to me after he went to sleep. I felt a renewed sense of responsibility. Alice was previously married, and there was Manson to consider as well. We knew we'd need money moving forward, so we decided not to have a wedding, but we did agree to take a picture together, just the three of us. Manson was amazed by Alice in her wedding dress, and while the photo session was a bit hectic with his curiosity about the equipment, we had a blast. On Alice's finger were 2 wedding rings, and she was smiling happily. That was my idea. Alice, if you're okay with it, would you wear your late husband's ring as well? What? Well, Manson's dad is your late husband, and it just feels wrong to have only me in the picture. She laughed and said, "It's exactly that about you I like," as she slipped on her old wedding ring for the first time in quite a while. That should have alleviated my tension somewhat, but of course it didn't. I look pretty stiff in the photo, but there's nothing to be done about that. But I made sure to convey my feelings to the two of them. I looked straight at Alice in her wedding dress and Manson in his suit, and I said, "I love you. I adore you both." "I love you too," Alice responded. "And I love you too, Dad," Manson chimed in. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but hug them both, as we all laughed together. My name is Mike Sullivan. I'm a 24-year-old bachelor. Currently, I'm working at a popular department store in downtown Manhattan. I drank too much. I was nursing a pounding hangover, contemplating going back to bed, when suddenly my smartphone started ringing. The call was from my boss, the department manager. Why would he be calling on the store's day off? As I picked up the call with a puzzled look, my boss excitedly greeted me. "Mike, good morning. As promised, I'll pick you up this evening." What promise are you talking about? You're so funny. Didn't you say at yesterday's party that you would meet my daughter for a date and even try living together? My mind was thrown into chaos by his completely unexpected response. I was too stunned to reply, but my boss said, "Talk to you later," and abruptly hung up. Unable to comprehend what was happening, I drank some water and tried to cool down my head. As I was thinking about last night's party, I had a bad feeling. At the company's drinking party last night, I, having just experienced a breakup, was drowning my sorrows in alcohol, getting thoroughly drunk. My ex-girlfriend was Layla, a beautiful 22-year-old model with a stunning figure. I was infatuated with her, but she cheated on me, and we decided to break up after discussion. Layla said there were plenty of other men besides me, and it would be better to break up if I was going to blame her for cheating. Deeply hurt by her heartless words, I drank heavily to ease my sorrow. My memory of what happened after is vague, but I think I spilled my heartbreak story to my boss. Just as I received a message from a coworker asking, "Were you all right yesterday?" and asked for the details of what I had discussed with my boss, a terrifying truth emerged. Seeing my heartbroken state, my boss had a suggestion. "Would you like to meet my daughter for a date? She's turning 37 this year and seems eager to get married. She's seriously looking for a partner, and she seemed to like you when she saw you at the store. I'm about to retire soon, and I'd love to see my grandchildren. I'm married to an older woman, and trust me, it's really great." In my drunken state, I apparently casually replied, "Sure, why not?" Cheered by my response, my boss even suggested, "Why don't you try living together for a month to get to know each other better? I'm sure you'll like her once you spend some time together." To your words, boss. I despise my past self for raising a glass and saying that. I really want to run away right now, but I can't, because I agreed to this myself. As promised, my boss came to pick me up at my place in the evening. Apparently, we were heading to a fancy restaurant where I was supposed to meet his daughter for the first time. After dinner, we'll head straight to the apartment where my daughter lives alone. The apartment is fully furnished, and you only need to bring the bare minimum. While you two are eating, I'll move your stuff to the apartment. Also, since it's a special occasion, why don't you dress up in a chic suit? I think it'll really enhance your charm. Okay. Overwhelmed by my boss's enthusiasm, I packed my things, changed into a suit, and smoothly got into the car. All the while we were driving, my boss kept saying with a smile, "I'm sure you two will get along." While listening to him, I began to feel a glimmer of hope. Although I'm really into younger, cute girls, I had just gone through a terrible breakup, so I thought it might be good to try dating an older woman this time. And since my boss is pushing this so much, maybe his daughter is beautiful. With these fantasies in mind, I entered the restaurant, but my hopes were instantly crushed. The woman waiting for me was a very plump lady, quite different from my usual type. I'm normally into slender women. I'm slim myself, and both my mom and sister are as well, so this woman in front of me seemed so big. "Nice to meet you, I'm Grace," Grace said, bowing politely. She was wearing a frilly, floral print dress, which somehow looked mismatched. Maybe it's because her hair is pitch black compared to the light color of her dress. Her face was not beautiful, and she looked her age, so I was disappointed deep down. "Nice to meet you." After we exchanged greetings, my boss said, "Take your time," with a smile and left. I was pondering what to talk about with a woman more than a decade older than me when Grace slowly started speaking. "I'm sorry to involve you in this complicated situation, but don't worry, I understand my place too." I was taken aback by her unexpected words, and as I stood there wide-eyed, Grace turned a gentle smile in my direction. "My father is desperate to get me married off as soon as possible. But you see, with my looks and my social skills, I'm embarrassed to say, I have no experience in love. So I've actually given up on the idea of getting married myself." I see. Listening to Grace, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. Apparently, it was not her but her father, my boss, who was in a rush. "So, I have a favor to ask. Would you be willing to live with me for just 1 month? Of course, we would have separate bedrooms, and I'll cover all the living expenses. You're free to do as you please in my apartment. If I can prove to my father that I'm not cut out for cohabitation, he should stop nagging me. I'll make sure that you don't suffer any disadvantage at work if our relationship doesn't work out, so don't worry." At first, I was determined to refuse any proposal, but after hearing her story, I changed my mind. "All right, it's clear that your father truly loves you, Grace. Considering the circumstances, I'll agree to this." Upon hearing my agreement, Grace's eyes sparkled with joy. "Thank you, I'm really happy. Oh, but I must say, I truly do find you wonderful, Mike. Let's make the most of the next month." Guys, looking forward to it. Actually, as I got to know Grace, I came to think of her as a kind and gentle person. She might be socially awkward, but I believe she truly has a kind heart. Of course, she's not exactly my type, and while I feel guilty towards her for harboring feelings towards me, the chances of anything romantic happening between us are practically non-existent. And so, we embarked on a 1-month trial of living together. My boss was overjoyed, exclaiming they're going for it. However, we had planned to end it in a month, with the agreed-upon excuse of we just didn't click. In reality, though, living with Grace turned out to be nothing short of comfortable. At first, the age gap and lack of common topics of conversation concerned me, but one day, I learned something surprising about her that changed our dynamics. "Those flowers are beautiful. Did you buy them?" When I asked about the small white flower arrangement adorning the windowsill, Grace shook her head. "No, I made that." "You made that, Grace?" I didn't know anything about her, but it turns out Grace was actually a flower arrangement instructor. As someone with a keen interest in fashion and art and working at a department store, I was intrigued by her work. "What was your inspiration for this arrangement?" When I asked, Grace's eyes sparkled as she explained her creation. "This white flower is called a snowdrop. Isn't it gorgeous? I imagined a silvery world and used the snowdrop as the main element to express the sparkling beauty of winter." Hearing her explain her unique worldview, I found Grace incredibly fascinating. Chatting about the arrangements was so enjoyable that time flew by. Initially, We planned to have separate meals, but I found myself wanting to spend more time with her. Without even realizing it, we naturally started sharing meals together. Grace was quite skilled in household chores, especially cooking, which she could have been a professional at. Initially, we planned to split household chores, but Grace being an early riser, the house was always spotless by the time I woke up. Feeling guilty, I offered to help, but Grace said I was the one who imposed this arrangement. In the end, aside from doing the laundry and cleaning my own room, Grace took care of all the chores. I was living in a consistently clean and organized house with well-balanced and delicious meals. The comfort was unsurpassed. At work, my boss often checked in on our situation. "How's living with my daughter, Mike?" "It's really enjoyable. Grace is excellent with household chores. I'm truly grateful." "That's good to hear. She's always saying love is impossible for someone like me. She's our precious daughter, but she always puts herself down." Hearing my boss's story, an idea popped into my head. I'd been wanting to thank Grace, who always prepared delicious meals, so I decided to make her a present in my own way. I found a piece of fabric that would suit her and decided to use my sewing skills to make her a custom-made piece from scratch. My mother was a sewing instructor, and sewing is my secret hobby. I currently manage the fashion floor at a department store. Of course, in order to make the dress, I needed to take her measurements. When I told Grace about my plan, she was thrilled. "Oh, thank you. I'll leave the measurements to you then, Mike." Yes, please." With nervousness gripping me, I slowly extended my arms toward Grace. Seeing her body up close like this for the first time, my heart pounded with excitement. Wow, she's really big. Grace's size was indeed much larger than average, but I believed that her larger frame allowed her to pull off certain designs better than others. With that conviction, I gifted her a handmade dress. This is for me." The dress, a glossy black fabric adorned with large white rose patterns, suited Grace perfectly. Over time, I'd come to feel that she looked better in cool fashion rather than cute, frilly clothing. It seemed her larger frame was ideal for bold patterns and unique styles. "Grace, you look stunning. If you'd like, may I do your makeup as well?" I acquired some basic makeup skills while working at a department store, a job my sister, a hairstylist, had recommended. Following the guidance of a makeup book, I applied cosmetics to Grace's face. She typically favored natural makeup, but I chose to use a bright red lipstick and deep black eyeliner. As I had expected, the intense makeup complemented her raven black hair. No way, I don't even recognize myself. "Grace, you really pull off this unique style." "Well, this is a first for me, but I think I like it. I used to only wear frilly, floral clothing because my mother liked it." I see. Grace had been influenced by her mother to wear such clothing in the past. I always hated how I looked. I thought makeup was pointless, but it really does make a difference, doesn't it? Yes, this kind of style isn't for everyone, so it's really special when someone can pull it off like you can. Please have confidence. You're incredibly attractive, Grace. As soon as those words left my mouth, I felt my cheeks heat up. It wasn't flattery. I genuinely felt it. Grace, standing before me, was truly beautiful. I had never thought I would see her in this light. "Mike, thank you. I'm really happy." With those words, Grace gave me a sweet smile. Seeing her joy-filled face made my heart swell. Age didn't matter anymore. Only 3 weeks into living together, I came to genuinely like her. At first, I was put off by her larger size, but I grew accustomed to it, and above all, I was entirely smitten with her personality. Before the trial period was over, I needed to express my feelings. I resolved to take Grace shopping on my next day off. We would look for clothing that suited her new style. I decided to confess my feelings. Amid all this, I received a message from my ex, Layla, saying she wanted to get back together. If it had been the old me, I would have gladly accepted her invitation, but not now. I clearly told Layla, I can't. Grace was the only one in my heart now. I resolved to forget the past and look forward to tomorrow's date. But on the date with Grace, something unexpected happened. "Oh, Mike, is that you?" I was taken by surprise when we bumped into Layla while walking down the shopping district with Grace. Grace looked at Layla, clearly puzzled, while Layla sized her up with an intrusive stare. The Layla was more traditionally attractive than Grace. Seeing her make such a face didn't make her look beautiful. "Mike, did you lose your mind after I dumped you? You always like slim, beautiful women like me, right? Walking around with a large, older woman like her. Your taste has really gone downhill." Layla's hurtful words left Grace frozen in shock. Layla then sauntered up to me, purring in a sultry voice. "Hey, Mike, wake up. Let's start over. I'm way better than that old lady." I couldn't hold back any longer and interrupted Layla. "Don't disrespect the person I care about." I was surprised at the loudness of my voice, even more than I had expected. Layla and Grace, too, were taken aback by my sudden change in demeanor, eyes wide with surprise. "Grace is the most important person in the world to me. She is far more wonderful to me than someone who belittles others like you, Layla. That's how much I love her. Even if it's you, Layla, I won't let you hurt her anymore." Whatever, fine. That plain dull old lady suits you just fine." With that, Layla spat out her parting shot and ran off somewhere. Realizing that the people in the town were paying attention to us, I took Grace's hand and moved to a quiet park. Grace was shedding a waterfall of tears, possibly hurt by Layla's words. I had to take her to a quiet place to calm down. As we sat down on a bench together, I first apologized to Grace. "Grace, I'm sorry for what happened earlier. My ex was speaking out of line. You shouldn't take it to heart." As I said that, Grace looked up at me with teary eyes. "No, it's not that. I'm happy. I've always hated the way I look. I thought no one would ever like me, but I was really happy when you said that, Mike. I've liked you since the first time I saw you." Grace, overwhelmed with happiness, I gently pulled her into an embrace. "I love you too, Grace. You're really beautiful." As I said that and caressed her back, Grace grasped my hand and said, "Yes, even if other people put me down. If you say that to me, Mike, that's enough for me." It ended up being quite different from what I had initially imagined, but I was able to convey my feelings to her. And with that, we officially started dating and told my boss that we were planning on getting married eventually. The boss was very pleased with the news. Yay! I couldn't be happier about my lovely daughter and adorable subordinate getting together. And so, after a year of dating, we registered our marriage successfully. Currently, we are preparing for our wedding ceremony. Grace had lost a significant amount of weight since we met, so we had to make a new wedding dress for her. Grace really has become so beautiful since meeting Mike. As the boss said this, he sighed dreamily while looking at a flower arrangement magazine. And on the cover of that magazine was Grace herself. Having built up a career as a flower arrangement instructor, Grace, with her accomplishments and chic style, had become a notable and charismatic figure in the flower arrangement industry. Grace, who wore the resized black dress I gave her as a present to fit her slimmed-down figure, was several times more beautiful than when we first met. Love is a powerful thing, isn't it? After meeting Grace, I was able to heal from the heartbreak and experience the joy of love again. No matter what lies ahead, if it's with her, we can overcome it together. With that conviction in my heart, I showed the boss a beaming smile